Hey everyone, this is Mark Treichel with another episode of With Flying Colors. I'm excited to be here today with the Chief Advocacy Officer of DCUC, Jason Stverak. Jason, how are you today?
I am doing wonderful. How about yourself, Mark?
I can't complain. Just got about a 5 mile walk in. I got my energy flowing this morning, and it's been a few months, a few quarters since I chatted with you. But I, I I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I see a lot of what you're doing for credit unions on LinkedIn. And I know there was a recent article that you sent out to Congress and maybe perhaps others that maybe we should highlight. If you kind of want to walk through the letters that you've been working on sending or sent this week in your role as Chief Advocacy Officer.
Yeah, obviously, I appreciate the opportunity. We set up letters, particularly to the House Financial Services Committee and Chairman Hill, in relation to the next piece of legislation that they've introduced to provide additional reforms and support for community banks. We're in favor of that. We've been in favor of rolling back a regulatory regime that has been designed to stifle the ability for community financial institutions to serve their members or their customers that has been favoring large and regional banks. But it seems like it's continually been more one-sided. We've had the Make Community Banking Great legislation. We've had this piece of legislation. Credit unions are facing and have been facing the same regulatory burden, for lack of a better term, that everyone else has faced. And we've been pushing both the House and the Senate to kind of take up that standard that as we are moving legislation to roll back regulatory burdens on banks, from the largest of the large to the community sides, credit unions need to be part of that journey every step of the way, because over 144 million Americans are credit union members. When over a third of the country is being left behind because we can't get a good reason why, then we as a National Credit Union Trade Association need to make sure that we are raising concerns. I'll put that in the nicest Midwestern possible way that I can, to ensure that the needs of credit unions to be able to serve our members now and well into the future is lifted. And as a part of that, as they are looking at regulations to overturn or repeal, let's take a look at member business lending, particularly as it relates to veterans. We understand that there may not be the appetite among members of Congress to repeal the entire, cap, but I think we as a nation and elected officials can agree that those that have chosen to serve our country, and just as importantly, their families that have chosen to serve their country along with their spouse, then we should defer to doing whatever we can to help them either transition out, create small businesses, help veterans grow, small businesses all across this country, because when you look at the studies, veterans are less likely to get loans, they're less likely to get support. And you have credit unions that are sitting on the sidelines with billions of dollars that want to invest in their members. Yet when they come in and say, we can't help you because we're at our cap, go across the street to the bank that you've never had any business with. Yet we have your entire family's financial portfolio with us. That's unfair, it's uncalled for, and it needs to be removed. And we're going to continually push that as hard as we can in both the House and the Senate, not only to attach to must-pass pieces of legislation, but standalone, because while we might not get this fight done this year or next, but we're going to slowly chip away to make sure that we get credit unions the changes they need to be able to fully serve their members. As as digital is exploding, we have been leading the fight to make sure that credit unions were not just knocking on the door when they're discussing digital assets. We're in the room and at the table so that members that are part of credit unions can have the access to the full, I'm a larger American buffet financial services products that are out there, and don't have to go to a bank to be able to access every tool that they can have to have the most prosperous financial opportunities they can and achieve the American dream.
Well, you talked about the tweaks to the rule for veteran member business loans. Is that something similar, not having read the letter or anything that's out
Yeah.
there, is that something similar to carving out the 1 to 4 family and not counting it against the cap? Is there, it's like building it that if someone's a veteran, it excluded from the cap? Is that the concept?
It's straight. If you're a veteran and that's how the loan is classified, it's like, when you apply for veterans benefits, you click the box. It would be the
Yeah,
same thing on the form here. Then it doesn't count against the the
I
12.5%
love it.
cap.
I love it.
It's
That's
that simple. So
it's elegant. It's elegantly simple. Confucius said it's a simple task to be complex, and it's a complex task to be simple. And I love the beauty of that. It's, these people fought for our country or are fighting for our country, and we're potentially excluding them from some opportunities, as you said, at the at the institution that they've always been part of, and it just doesn't make sense.
Well, and I'll give you an example where I come from North, North Dakota. I mean, you had, and you still have with the continued expansion of the oil and gas, exploration and production in the state. We all know banks are really not interested in giving the loans for businesses less than $100,000, and credit unions were not interested in giving the $200 or $300 billion loans,
Right.
to explore for massive projects. But who who is uniquely situated out there for someone retiring from Minot Air Force Base? Is mechanics, got the skills, just needs a new truck to be able to go from oil patch to oil patch, and they're running 80, 90, $100,000 for a good new pickup truck. Yet credit unions are ideal to make those loans. And banks, if you try to apply online at Chase or something like that, they're like, it's not even worth the paperwork problems that we have that we would have to deal with. So just let us serve our members. And that's what I think is kind of lost, is that from when they were 17 or 18 or 19 years old and they joined, or graduated from one of the academies, or went through ROTC. We've had their family's financial future and in portfolio with us. We've been trusted. They've stayed with us. They're there for 20, 30 years, first home loan, college funds, savings accounts, car loans, etc. Yet we're kicking them across the street to a bank because of some arbitrary cap, passed by Congress. It's time to take the handcuffs off credit unions and allow us to serve our members to the fullest extent possible, because these members want to do business with us. They want to do with someone that they have an existing business relationship with, and yet we're saying, no, you've got to go somewhere else.
Sure, sure. And one other thing I picked up on you
Yeah.
saying is whether it's part of this bill, whether it's a standalone bill, you got to be ready, right? That's one thing I learned, working at NCUA. There might have been some things that I wanted to do as executive director, but I had to wait for the timing when the board was positioned to want to take action. So there were things that my deputy executive director and I, John Cutchy, had ready to plug and play. Without going into specifics of what those might have been, it was, if a board's got an appetite, we're ready. So you don't have to go to them and say, "Hey, I'd like to do this." Well, where's the paperwork? And you don't have it done. So you guys,
No,
you
you're
guys had to take
exactly
that
right.
approach.
No, we do. And I come from Capitol Hill, and it's always, good luck is when hard work meets opportunity and preparation. So
Exactly.
we want to make sure that we don't have to educate the members, that we can come to them and say, hey, that's a great idea, I've been supportive of it, let's move with it here. And so that's kind of our mentality. And to an extent, we're blessed. A lot of our defense credit unions, they have boards of directors that are former military, a lot of them, or come from the military community. And if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. So we
Right.
try to have those plans. And when you have generals and admirals and colonels and staff sergeants asking questions, you darn well better have an answer, and and you need to be ready to go. And that's what we try to do, is not only to equip our credit unions to be able to, to be help us move into that, move into the breach when it's possible, but us as a National Trade Association to be able to handle those needs as well.
No, and on the National Trade Association front, we're into the merger of NAFCU into CUNA, the new
Yeah.
ACU, and it's just great. Standing on the sidelines and seeing all the hard work that you're doing and DCUC is doing, it's good to have voices, right? Wisdom of the crowd. One of the concerns with that merger that I'd heard was, well, that's one less letter that's going in support of credit unions, right? But it seems to me that you guys have seized that opportunity to make sure that you're on a full court press on all sorts of topics.
No, absolutely. And we try to be as nimble and as quick. We call it Green Beret advocacy, in terms of, we took that from I stole that, I'll be honest about it, from a board director at Space Coast, Federal Credit Union down in Florida, who's a Green Beret, where, you don't have to have a 50-person advocacy team. And a lot of associations are talking about this idea. We just need to have a core group that is able to go out and professionally train or work with our members, because they are the true secret sauce, secret weapon, whatever you want to call it. Members of Congress, as influential and as eloquent as we can be as lobbyists and association professionals, they much easier respond to people who vote for them in the district,
Sure.
that sponsor the local sports teams, et cetera. So, we've adapted and adopted a mentality of a Green Beret mentality, where we will have a professional group of individuals who will work with our members to achieve our shared advocacy goals, and so that money is returned back to the institution so that they can make the best choices local to keep the doors open, provide, do whatever they need to do. It shouldn't be, always supporting us. So
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, we went through the taxation fight. It
yeah.
seems like it's kind of like, winning the Super Bowl, and then you get a week off, and then you got to start planning for the next season and defending the taxation. Any
No,
thoughts on the journey of getting to today, where things played out right, or but don't go to sleep because we still have to
yeah.
keep watching.
No, that's kind of the mentality. I think that it was impressive by the way, how whenever, an association and or credit union kind of got involved in the fight, whether it's at the beginning or at the end, it was impressive to see the industry coming together and singing from the same hymn book in terms of protecting credit union tax status. And it was great. We had, we staved off that fight. I am still greatly concerned that we were even part of that discussion for that, and the fact that when you're part of the 55-page document of pay-fors on how to fund the first big beautiful bill, or the BBB, yeah, it's like, we won the Super Bowl, that's done, but that was yesterday. Today we got to be moving forward. We've heard the Speaker of the House, we've heard Senate Finance Chairman Mike Crapo, or is like month and a half ago, say we're going to do another reconciliation package this year. So that means that as they're looking to fund things, the amount of, the buckets to pay for differences in funding or stuff like that, or where they may need to get revenue, is less and less. And so, that $3 to $4 billion a year, or as they do it, the budget reconciliation, package, and they do it on a 10-year cycle. So the 40-50 billion that they budget for, that starts to look appealing at 3 a.m,
Right.
when they need to pay for something. So, it's great. We've congratulated ourselves, and it's not breathless hyperbole for us to say the next fight is already on us, because once they're done with the CR or the funding or whatever, that's taking up most of the oxygen in Washington. We're going to see there will be a move towards another reconciliation package. There's going to be an additional 1 or 2 next year, we've been told by leadership staff. So that was the first quarter. We're going to start going to the second quarter, then we're going to go to the third and the fourth. And heck, you never know. They can try to change the rules or interpret them in such a way that they could even do more. So, it's going to be a continuing fight, where every conversation we are having, we're always including the value for the value of credit unions is justifying our tax status, not only telling the stories from back home, having our members tell those stories, not only of what they do because of our unique structure and giving us those tax, that tax benefit, but what will happen to the communities they represent if that is taken away.
No, well said. Well said. And bank purchases. I saw something recently, some chatter on
Yep.
the concept of bank purchases and general thoughts on that whole state of affairs. Where DCUC's position, where you see the playing field.
We are going to aggressively and violently defend the ability for banks to sell to credit unions. It seems kind of strange that we are defending their ability to get the highest price available in the communities. I come from rural America. You had a bank and a credit union most likely in your communities, and if the bank, for whatever reason, is choosing to go out of business, I'd rather have them make the choice to sell to a local community-based institution rather than a large regional bank or GSIP, because they're not going to care what happens in a town of 200 or 300 people. But the people who live there, the people who sponsor the local sports team, they shop at the same grocery store. That's incredibly important. And, it just continually needs to be pointed out that when a bank sells to a credit union, the community benefits. They benefit by people staying employed, by tax dollars staying local in terms of salary and benefits. Many times, they like to, banks like to say this is, a tax-free purchase. That's not true. The credit union pays the taxes on the assets. They pay in some states. Banks that have been sold to credit union, the credit union has had to pay up to a 10% surcharge, to be able to, to get those assets. So I think that it's kind of a red herring that we'll continually see from the community banks and the banks, to renew their membership drives, to try to scare people. It's you also have to lay in the fact that many, smaller community banks using subchapter S aren't in the position not to pay taxes at all right now. So the tax avoidance argument is kind of false in terms of how banks play that. And at the end of the day, they're fighting to save members so that those members can pay dues to their national associations, and it should always be about what is best for the community, what is best for the people, not what is best for the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
Well said. Well said. So I know that was it maybe 2 years ago, possibly now, the expansion of people of who can join DCCU, or maybe highlighting who can join DCUC. Can you someone might be
Yeah,
listening to this going, hey, I'm a SEG employee. I serve ABC company, right? But
right.
I'm interested and I like what I'm hearing and seeing that DCUC is doing. How does someone join DCUC and participate?
Honestly, just any credit union can join. Because every credit union has a veteran, and the issues we fight for on behalf of our, quote unquote defense credit unions, that are specifically on base, et cetera. These are the same issues that impact every credit union, whether it's a tax fight, whether it is banks selling to credit unions, whether it's a interchange. Those are universal. They don't just impact teacher credit unions or common bond, or it's everyone can join our association, and we will aggressively support and work with you like we do with someone who's been us for the 63 years that we've been in place as an organization. So, if anyone, they just reach out to me, or go to our website, go to dcuc.org, click collect for more information, on our info site. And we're happy to reach out and talk to you because, we have a unique due structure. The most you can pay as an institution, and this would be like Penn Fed size, if you're tens of billions of dollars, is just a little over 20,000.
Wow.
Most of them are 3,000 or less. And we live by a motto, you can pay for more, but you're not going to get better, in terms of us fighting for credit unions and helping work for a better credit union future for every credit union, whether they're School's Choice, which just joined, Unitas, or my hometown of Rapid City, South Dakota, Black Hills Federal Credit Union, near the Air Force Base, and on base Sentinel Federal Credit Union. So
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear the growth is continuing.
yes,
You guys are doing
yeah, we've had about, I think, since March, 30 to 35 that have joined. We're
really
still there's more there. I think we're going to be announcing 3 or 4 more in the next 2 weeks. Just
fantastic.
after they
Fantastic.
sign the documents, go through the webinars and all that type of stuff, and it's good to go.
Love it. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So, from the NCUA perspective, anything on the horizon there that you can think of that you're watching?
Well, obviously, we're coming into budget cycle time.
Yep.
So we're anticipating what the staff's budget will be, and then be able to once again testify in front of the board. Like everybody else in the credit union system or industry or movement, we're obviously waiting to see what plays out with the board members of the Supreme Court decision. We have always been steadfast in our support for a strong, independent NCUA board. We want nothing that could give any inclination or wink, wink, nod, nod that, hey, we should just roll everybody under one regulator,
Sure.
and then, we're in the basement of the Treasury building, and in 10 or 15 years, we're gone, as institutions. And so, we're going to do whatever we can to support that. And obviously, we've been commenting on the agency reviews and the rules reviews. We are very thankful for the agency's hard work that we've been up on the CLF issue, specifically in the Senate, working with Senators Padilla and Senators Kramer on that. The team over at the NCUA and Chairman Hauptman has done yeoman's work to help move that issue along. I think we're farther along than we've ever been. We
Wow.
have a ways to go, but I'm glad I think we're playing on the other side of the field right now. And that's testament to the great working team over at the NCUA. I know, there is concern as the agency has shed employees, whether through Doge, whether through retirement, whether they're not filling. Obviously, we want to make sure that the agency has the resources it needs to provide, safety and soundness throughout the system. But also knowing and understanding that credit unions pay for, for the group, and
Yeah.
for that we're wisely using the resources out there.
Well said.
And so I don't think anyone thinks, working at the NCUA, you're sitting with your feet up and you're not working hard, because I've seen those people work incredibly hard and diligent, both up on Capitol Hill and also either at CUNA or here at DCUC. So hats off to them for continually doing that incredible hard work. And I think we continually see that when our nation goes through, a bank run or a financial crisis, I haven't seen one track back to a credit union in their
That's right.
practice.
That's
So,
right. And despite all the retirements and the Doge impact, there's talent there at every level. This will create some
yeah,
opportunity for some new people to rise into leadership. And there'll be some bumps along the road, just because they're losing, pick a number, 22% of the staff, depending on whose numbers you look at. But a lot of great people there. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the budget. When you testify before the board, who will it be, and the like. So
well, and you also got to expect, I mean, they've had kind of roughly the same amount of employees for when we had 10,000 credit unions.
right,
Now we're down to under 4,500. So the agency has to flex and expand and contract, with the industry to be able to meet its needs. So we're going to have fewer smallers because of mergers, and some of the regulatory difficulties we talked earlier about, creating new credit unions or de novo credit unions. And as other credit unions are getting larger, we're going to have different types of evaluations and
Sure.
exams,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but what I'm fully confident of is that 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, that the credit union movement industry is going to be stronger than it is today because of the people in the movement and why they choose to be a credit union member rather than a customer over at Bank of America.
Well, extremely well said there. Almost good for a wrap. But I want to ask you: is there any
Yeah.
other questions or any other things that you'd like to chat with here today before we wrap up, Jason?
No, honestly, just to say thank you. I think a lot of our members and, other credit union leaders, follow you breathlessly, on social media and through the podcast, stay abreast of the issues impacting them. Just to say thank you, whether it's from the tax fight or the issue we've been having with Marshall and Durbin and interchange and possible amendments onto the NBAA. Whenever DCUC or any other organization or group has made a effort or made a call for help, member credit union has always been there, and that type of cooperative spirit is why we will continue to win most of the advocacy fights up on Capitol Hill, because we're not a nameless, faceless organization based upon getting whatever our quarterly profits are for returns. We measure our success by the amount of people that we help in the mortgages that we provide, or the new the low income communities that we go into that have been abandoned by the banking system. So just to say thank you to everybody, to the entire credit union industry. I know sometimes it kind of feels thankless to be a credit union leader because you're always being asked to do more. But we see it at DCUC, and we love being the partner for, hundreds upon hundreds of credit unions across this country to ensure that they have every tool that they need to serve their members to the best ability.
Well said again. And Jason, I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for being on the show. We'll get you on later in the year if
No
something
problem.
pops, and we'll get you on even post budget just to kind of walk through what happens there. But again, thank you so much for your time today, Jason.
No, absolutely. And you need to knock on wood or throw some salt over your shoulder, because I don't want you to have jinxed us and said that something bad's going to happen.
Knock on wood. I'll do it
There you
all.
go. All right.
I'll do it all. All right.
All right.
And listeners, yeah, I want to thank you for listening. As always, this is Mark Treichel signing off with flying colors.